Halving.
Oh my god, it's mixed.
All right, y'all, let's get started. Crypto Monday San Juan, Crypto Monday San Juan. Let's get a round of applause. Let's get a round of applause, please. That was lame as fuck. We need some energy here, man. Give me some energy. Crypto Monday San Juan, Crypto Monday San Juan. Let me get a round of applause. Let me get a round of applause, please. Shout out to my own table of white people that have no idea what they walked into. Welcome, y'all. Welcome to Crypto Monday San Juan. I'm your host, Pedro Rivera. I got a good friend of mine in my house, the legendary one and only Brittany Kaiser. Go ahead and give it up for her. She needs no introduction. Wow. You guys like to clap, huh? Okay. Brittany, what's up, boo? How you been?
I am so happy to be here tonight.
I'm amazed and grateful as always to have you here. Bitcoin halving is happening, right? It's happened, excuse me, right? What is it? How many halvings happened? What is this? 5, 4? Of course you would know. So the fourth Bitcoin halving taking place. Well, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about Gryphon Digital Mining and a little bit about, you going public. Shout out to Brittany Kaiser and the team at Gryphon Mining going public.
Well, it's a pretty fun story. This all started in 2020, where a group of my decentralized contacts, where most of us had never met in person, decided to start a new Bitcoin mining company, which might seem straightforward, but it wasn't the type of small operation that you're going to start up in your basement. We really saw that the conversation around Bitcoin was starting to become a little bit aggravated in terms of the way that legislators, regulators, and the press were starting to see Bitcoin and question our creation of this asset class using extraordinary amounts of energy, in their opinion. And so what we saw is there was a huge opportunity at the time to create the first 100% renewable Bitcoin mining company, the first one that was ESG focused and led with a specific strategy. That did not exist at all in 2020, and it was really before that narrative became bigger. But given that I've spent most of my time since going full-time into the digital asset industry on legislative and regulatory initiatives, I knew that sooner or later this argument about Bitcoin and energy use was going to turn into legislative action. And the only way to actually future-proof a new Bitcoin mining company was to make sure that it didn't use fossil fuels. Now, about a month after I joined the company, we started seeing a rise in press concern and in legislative concern, to the point where all of a sudden Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey and Kevin O'Leary and started using their time as business leaders and international thought leaders on the topic to bring focus specifically on the fact that Bitcoin and its energy usage, especially fossil fuel usage, was going to become the #1 thing that they wanted to talk about for the foreseeable future. Which couldn't have been a better time to open a seed round, but it was shocking to actually see the level at which this growing concern was coming, given that I thought a lot of the people that started to be concerned about this didn't even know anything about Bitcoin in the first place. And so for this to be their #1 thought or interest or concern about the industry was incredibly shocking, but also really validating that something like this was needed in the marketplace. And no, it's not easy to start a new large Bitcoin mining company, and it's certainly not easy to even start a small one and be profitable. So when we started this as a decentralized group of people, when the whole world was still shut down during COVID, we started building an all-star team. We hired the former CFO and CEO of Riot Blockchain, the second largest public Bitcoin mining company. We hired the CFO of Marathon, the world's largest public Bitcoin mining company. And we kept it lean and mean and grew over the past couple of years and went public on NASDAQ just 2 months ago. As the only company to ever go public on NASDAQ with only 3 employees. We are one of the world's largest Bitcoin mining companies. We're number 13, and we're one of only 2 Bitcoin mining companies that are actually profitable. It's only Marathon and Gryphon Digital Mining that are profitable as of last quarter. The rest of the industry is in the red. So,
How much did you guys raise?
so in our seed round, we raised about 15 million, and we raised another 5 subsequently. So with that amount, we were able to buy nearly $100 million worth of computers and plug in those ASICs in 100% hydroelectric facilities. And then we used to also have a hydroelectric nuclear mix, which we have now moved out of. So we're right now 100% hydro. And for us, now having access to public markets capital, which has been our entire purpose from the beginning, we founded this Bitcoin mining company to go public on NASDAQ. And we hired all former executives of people who had taken Riot or Marathon public on NASDAQ, so we knew we could do it. We even started with our board with the former chairman of NASDAQ, so he was one of our co-founders. And we knew what to do, we knew that we could do it, but the process always takes a lot longer than you hope. I mean, taking a startup public when you're only 3 years old is still a huge feat in and of itself. But yeah, if anyone looks at public filings, we're about to raise 100 million, which we're really excited about, to deploy into large-scale mergers and acquisitions and investment in other companies and diversification of our business model.
I hear the money printer go brrr.
That's not the sound an ASIC makes.
Suddenly I got cold up here, and I gotta fix my scarf and shit. Okay. All right, so a lot of big money talk there, man. Give her a round of applause for big money shit she got going. Right. So let's talk about the halving and having happened. Happened. Right, something like that. Right.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so let's talk about the halving and how its effect on, ultimately supply, and what does it do ultimately, give people who don't know what the halving is all about a little bit more information on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking in terms of the view from the Bitcoin mining industry, the halving is a very exciting and scary moment. It means that all of a sudden your Bitcoin mining block rewards are going to be cut in half. So all of your profitability as a company will get cut in half. Therefore, your ability to be efficient, to not be having too many people on salary, to be using investor capital as efficiently as possible, to be using low-cost access to debt in order to build your company really is the make or break. And for Bitcoin mining companies, right after a halving, it's grow or die, and it's usually when most Bitcoin mining companies fail and file for bankruptcy, as we saw after the last halving. Quite a few went into bankruptcy that were even public, let alone all of the private companies that you never heard of that had to sell all of their machines and sell all of their energy contracts. So it's a really huge deal for the Bitcoin mining company, and this time the market actually realized what was going on. And so the market has massively devalued Bitcoin mining companies ahead of the halving, knowing that a lot of them are going to fall out. And as of this past week when Q1 earnings came in, it showed that there's only 2 of us that are profitable anyway. And that was before the halving. So Bitcoin mining is a really, really hard business to be in. It's obviously essential for as many Bitcoin mining companies or operations to exist around the world to secure the Bitcoin network. So it's not convenient that a lot of people go out of business unless you have this spare cash to pick up all their assets. But it's definitely a time for mergers and acquisitions for very efficient companies like ours. Buy while there's blood in the water, even if the blood is your own, so they say. But it's a really interesting time because it means that there's going to be a huge accumulation of I suppose, hashing power under a handful of large companies. Because right now I think there's 12 or maybe 14 public Bitcoin mining companies, maybe more than that by now. But so many of those are reporting huge losses that I think a lot of them will join other companies in order to survive. a lot of people will lose their jobs. A lot of these companies just won't be able to be profitable long enough to grow. But you know, all of that aside, what is incredibly exciting is the ones that do survive are about to see a cyclical large rise in the price of Bitcoin.
I.e. Gryphon Digital Mining, chomp, 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 eating away at the market a little bit, maybe?
Anyway, anyone that is still profitable will be putting those profits into more machines in order to grow. And what a lot of people, I suppose, don't fully understand is that it's a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario, which is that Bitcoin miners will only grow if the rewards are healthy enough in order to buy the machines and pay for the energy. So with the rise of Bitcoin mining price means miners like us will grow in order to keep up and get as many of those rewards as you possibly can during this cycle. It's not really the other way around, where we grow and because of the hashing power, the price goes up. The price goes up because of many different reasons, and we have to grow to get as much of our slice of the pie as possible. So it's a very interesting, complex company that seems straightforward. You're like, okay, you buy computers and you plug them in. Okay, well, yeah, you should see what the actual financial modeling looks like behind these companies, because there are so many moving pieces in order to make sure that you can maximize efficiency, because the profit margins are actually very small. But if you are big enough, a lot of small profit margins is still quite a lot of money, so it's worth it.
So you said something there in regards to energy. So a couple of things. One, first and foremost, you said in the onset when you guys initially began your raise, there was a lot of concern. You know, a lot of people, big talking heads from not only Bitcoin supporters, but also obviously people in opposition to the industry as a whole started making a lot of fuss about the amount of energy that Bitcoin takes to be produced. I want to talk a little bit about that and see, like, not only where Gryphon's at, but also what you see moving forward in the industry as a whole for energy consumption and mining.
Yeah, of course. And so for me, I don't really like the debate over whether Bitcoin is a legitimate use of energy. I think that's kind of a waste of time. It depends whether or not you understand and know the asset class. If you do, then of course it is a legitimate use of energy. If you don't understand Bitcoin, you might question that, and that's where a lot of the disinformation in the press and with legislators and regulators comes. But if we're talking about use of renewable energy, the conversation completely changes. And I don't mean just renewable, but carbon-free energy sources like nuclear as well. When you start to say you're not using fossil fuels, then it is completely different, because the main concern is not that Bitcoin miners are using too much renewable energy and there's none left for the people. Like that's not the conversation. The conversation is that large-scale use of fossil fuels makes the rising interest in Bitcoin as an asset class and the rising demand for Bitcoin a threat to achieving environmental goals, which for me, I wanted to make sure that I would never be on that side of the conversation. If I'm going to start a Bitcoin mining company, I need to make sure that I can stand in Congress and I can tell them that, no, our company is not a hindrance to achievement of environmental goals. In fact, we can be an amazing financial partner, because we'll be able to finance large-scale developments of renewable energy resources where a lot of other companies don't have the profitability or the business model to inject that level of capital into some of these developments. And it means local communities and in general every other industry can benefit from the fact that we are financing the growth and development of carbon-free energy sources, and that's what we concentrated on. I mean, it was really, really easy in the beginning to get pitched by 1 million people to have the cheapest energy in the world if we're willing to plug into the grid, which is going to be at least 50% fossil fuels, if we're willing to use oil and gas instead of lithium batteries, we'll have more uptime if we're going to use solar or wind. And we just decided not to compromise and got very specific about that. We had one site that was slightly plugging into the grid a little bit, and so we were like 98 point something % renewable, and we decided no more of that. And we moved those machines out of the facility and moved them to an 100% off-grid hydro facility. And so for us, having that sort of integrity and sticking to our goals was incredibly important, because as the rise of the world's concern about Bitcoin and dirty energy, a lot of Bitcoin mining companies started saying that they were mostly renewable. Well, I guess 51% is mostly, but it's still 49% fossil fuels. And if you, I started my career as an environmental activist. So for me, I need to be able to stand in integrity when I'm speaking at, you know, COP26, COP28, whatever it is. If I'm speaking to one of my friends who's heading up Greenpeace, or whatever it is, I need to be able to state my case with integrity. And of course, as someone that's been in Bitcoin since 2011, I will defend Bitcoin to the death no matter where you plug in your ASICs, of course. But if it's my company, I'm going to spend all my time building something, I need to be able to stand in Congress and say, guess what, you guys just passed a bill in the state of New York that bans mining with fossil fuels. Guess what, Gryphon Digital Mining was not banned because our facilities in New York are 100% hydro. So, no, I wasn't behind that bill. I believe in people's right to mine no matter what energy they are using. But still, I think that became a huge point of what we were trying to do, and it meant that we got a lot of other incredible opportunities.
So, you know, it's a key point there is that, you know, you obviously have a lot of history with, you know, lobbying and getting certain things going in legislation, right? She's better than me because I cheat like a motherfucker. I definitely got the bill passed. Fuck y'all. But yeah. So, one of the things I wanted to touch on was something that last week I was at the Bitcoin Energy Summit in Miami, and one of the topics that we discussed on my panel was how AI's consumption of energy vastly outweighs any other energy consumption that you can imagine, even laps the field in most cases by like 10. It's ridiculous. And no one's concerned, no one's addressing it, but yet Bitcoin mining seems to be something that people really, really fuss over, right? What are your thoughts on the disparity between the consumption of use of energy for AI versus the consumption of use for Bitcoin, and how it's typically used, how it's typically cast that, you know, this is such a bad thing, you guys are using so much energy for Bitcoin, when it's essentially the same thing, right?
It is literally nearly the exact same thing. So whether you are running a data center as Google or Facebook or Amazon, or you are running a data center mining Bitcoin, or you are running a data center full of machines that are processing AI algorithms, you're doing the exact same thing. It's all the same process. It's computers that are processing data and processing data in algorithms and algorithms in algorithms, etc. and so forth. That's all it is. It's a data processing play. All of them is the same infrastructure, the exact same process. Just of course, the only real difference is that there are plenty of people that are anti-crypto, and they have their own reasons, no matter who they're secretly paid by or publicly paid by. They are anti-crypto for their own intents and purposes, and so there's no difference.
That wouldn't be they, would it? I'm always amazed by who's they, right? I just learned the other day too that the American government has 2 million people that work for it, and another 10 million subcontractors. So when you talk about they is a big number, right? But they is more than likely usually few people within that large multi-pylon organization. Some of them happen to be pretty powerful.
Yeah, the people who pull the purse strings on large enterprises, whether private or public enterprises. I do mean certain government departments as well as you know, multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations. But if crypto as an infrastructure and as a technology and as a form of money or a form of value or a new asset class threatens what they are doing, then they're going to find reasons to be mad at Bitcoin.
If you're mad, stay mad. If you're mad, stay mad. Bitcoin to the moon, baby. Let's get some questions. Who we got questions? Ryan, I know you got questions. Let someone else go first? Okay. I don't know your name, sir.
Randy.
Oh, Randy.
Your hydro is all in New York?
Right now it is, yeah.
Right now? In Washington State, they got unlimited hydro resources, but the Biden administration now is trying to remove dams. Is there any of that kind of talk in New York?
He's still asleep. Don't worry about it.
Well, luckily most of the mining that happens in New York is like way up in upstate New York, mostly closer to Niagara Falls, and we don't exactly need a dam to produce it. And so I know that more in New York, it has been a regulatory initiative of stopping people from plugging into fossil fuel-based resources, which is why most people that had machines in New York that were at mixed facilities or facilities that were plugging into the grid all mostly moved to 100% hydro because it's the most plentiful and the cheapest in the state of New York. So I haven't seen anything about stopping dams so far, which wouldn't be the main issue in New York. It's just because New York is controlled by a certain Democrat majority that are very environmentally focused, which is totally fine. That's their own prerogative. I have no problem with that. But they see Bitcoin as the enemy instead of as the friend to achievement of their environmental goals. So it's really trying to flip the switch on that conversation that has been what I've been plugging away at for the past 3.5 years.
Them damn New Yorker Democrats. Next.
I'll do one comment, one question. So, AI compute is actually a lot worse than the Bitcoin.
10 times over. The consumption of AI computation is actually, like, it far exceeds any consumption from any other product.
You can't throttle AI compute.
Yeah.
There's a difference between stopping someone from guessing a random number or stopping someone from writing a novel. You know, it's two completely different workloads. So the question...
You might know a little bit about what you're talking about, too. Go ahead.
So the question is, with Gryphon, you guys are very much focused on hydroelectric. Any plans to move elsewhere, other grids, and look for...
Damn right, we're taking over the world, Pinky.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say for us the most interesting are hydro and nuclear, that's for sure. Our CEO is one of the world's top uranium experts and sits on 2 boards of uranium companies. So
Is he Russian?
He's Chinese, actually. Chinese-Canadian. And he is hyper-focused on us being able to get involved in some of the larger scale nuclear developments, which of course, in the great, very digital asset-friendly state of Wyoming currently has the largest scale infrastructure for Bitcoin mining nuclear deployments. And so that's something that's very exciting to us, and hydro mostly because you don't really have any downtime. And so you don't have to think about, am I going to use a destructive lithium battery to account for latency? Am I going to dip into the grid? Am I going to have some sort of fossil fuel-based system to make sure my ASICs are running, 100%, or that I have the ability to overclock them? And so you get that big issue with solar and wind. Like that just is what it is. So we're very focused on hydro nuclear, no matter where that happens to be. It doesn't even have to be in the United States. Right now we're 100% in the United States. We used to have deployments in Georgia and North Carolina and a few other places. But it ended up that the highest levels of efficiency that we could get were 100% hydro facilities in New York. So we have our full deployments there and about to undertake quite a decent amount of M&A and investment in other opportunities, which again will be 100% renewable or carbon-free, as I should say, since nuclear isn't renewable technically, but still no fossil fuel footprint either way.
Salhas in the back.
What's your strategy to indemnify your activities against like the Gensler, like SEC kind of like?
He's gonna die soon. He's a dinosaur.
Well, the first strategy that we have employed is to not diversify our company away from Bitcoin. I spend most of my time full-time in this industry working on the regulatory side. So I moved to the state of Wyoming in early 2018 to work with Caitlin Long and the legislators there, and I have sat on multiple U.S. congressional committees there on blockchain, fintech, and digital innovation, and helped co-write and pass over 40 pieces of legislation. And what I knew when I left Wyoming was that the only thing that we have regulatory clarity on is Bitcoin, and that's it. And as much as I wanted Gryphon to be a company that could diversify in staking and validating and node creation as a service for individuals and institutions, I don't want to get sued by the SEC. I testified to the SEC a million times. I've reported loads of people to the SEC. I deal with those people all the time. I don't want them sending me a letter, and I know how to not get a letter sent, and that is by sticking to Bitcoin only, which is why I am so excited to see what just happened in this halving cycle, where all of a sudden, with the rise of Bitcoin native assets, Bitcoin layer 2s, etc., and so forth, all of a sudden we have Bitcoin-focused other asset classes and developments, which should be where more people are focusing all of their energy, and I have absolutely no problem with any of the other layer ones and blockchains, and they all have their own reason for existing. But until the SEC can have, or the IRS can have any sort of decision whatsoever, Bitcoin is the only thing that is safe if you are an American or you are doing business in America, and that's a fact.
Thank God the world is a lot bigger than the U.S.
I know.
Howdy.
Yeah, so as we were kind of mentioning the kind of new wave of like Bitcoin DeFi and all of that, so I think there's like two things I see happening. So one is basically your fees got kind of halving, so your Bitcoin security budget kind of went down. So that's like overall kind of concern. So we'd love to kind of understand what you think about it. But on the other side, you're getting like order of magnitude more fee potentially from all of the ordinals and rules and everything, which is obviously probably very exciting for you guys as a miner.
That guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. You might see him on
So
Crypto Monday stage soon.
Yeah. So I guess like my actual question is like now instead of like a fixed security budget, Bitcoin almost is a variable security budget and a variance, right? So how do you guys think about that to like manage your business in the long run?
So, I think most miners were still, even though we knew that ordinals were for a while taking up the majority of the Bitcoin network transactions and that they were giving us extraordinary amounts of fees that no one ever expected, we still didn't really think that runes and some of these other deployments were going to have the effect that they had. And to have, even for a short period of time, the block rewards going 3x instead of in half is, I mean, that's insane. That no one predicted that. Nobody. Absolutely not. And so that was hugely exciting, and I think most Bitcoin miners, if they know it's good for them, will have a Bitcoin asset strategy that is outside of just Bitcoin production, because it's good for us. I mean, all of the degens and DeFi lovers that want to trade assets on Bitcoin, great for them, but it's miners that are getting all of those extraordinary fees. So for us to invest in diversification of our companies by supporting development on the Bitcoin network, I think is the most important thing that miners could do as a longevity and profitability strategy.
Stokes.
Can you comment on your opinion about like the cloud mining scams? And maybe I'm leading the question a little bit, because I personally have seen a lot of situations where they kind of screw the customer by offloading them to some weird contract where they're just going to lose money, but they're just like offloading their crappy energy contracts and their crappy.
I got a piece of Brooklyn Bridge I want to sell you too.
Yeah, can you comment on that? And then the second part of that is, would you recommend people just invest on the stock market in your company as a way to get exposure, as opposed to those type of things? Or what would you recommend if someone wants to get exposure to Bitcoin mining?
No, click the link from the Nigerian prince. That's what we prefer. You go that route, okay? You click the link of this Facebook link that the Nigerian prince sent you. No.
I would say, as someone that has spent most of my life in the legal world for one reason or the other, and really joined the digital asset industry as someone that was focused on regulatory clarity, for me there is a big reason why I've pursued building public companies. It is because public companies are so rigorously audited and publicly reported of absolutely every single thing that you do, that everything that has ended up on NASDAQ and other public securities markets is so de-risked by the time that you get to it, that it is very, very unlikely that you're going to end up in some crazy fraud scheme, because the SEC and NASDAQ and multiple third-party auditors, et cetera, with 5 different law firms, the best law firms in the world that you pay millions of dollars to, everyone has checked it out and says that everything is kosher. So it's just, if you're talking about a risk profile, not that all of us in this room are a low risk profile, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be in crypto. But in general, the fact that there now are digital asset companies on the public markets, I think is really, really exciting. And just like you can invest in a fund of funds, and you would do that as a de-risking strategy, you can invest in a public crypto company instead of a private one, and maybe, yes, have less exponential returns, but also be a lot less likely to lose your funds. I couldn't say more about how scary it is to see the rise of all of these fraud schemes. almost made it better for a little bit, and we kind of saw a drop off of that where less people were being targeted with this stuff. But now
You
that
say-
it's kind of old news.